been kind of pivoting a little bit off the podcast, has there been any other venture you've ever kind of pursued in your life and you've had a setback and you realize through that setback, you really weren't that dedicated to that? Like something you were like, you know what, this is not really for me. This is not really something I want. Or are you the type of person who's only ever pursued things that you were truly passionate about and you were like, for one reason or another, it just didn't work out?
Let me see. The only time I ever got fired.
You got fired?
Yeah, I got fired.
Me too. I got fired, but you go first.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. I have a reason.
All
why I
right,
got
the only
fired.
time I ever got fired, and so my mantra in life, I'm kind of like the I want to be like the Dos Equis man, you know, the most interesting man in the world.
You already are, bro.
So there's a few things on my list that I still got to tick off, but I've literally had tons of different jobs, side hustles, and things like that. So when I got my master's degree and I had my corporate job, my 9 to 5, I also was like, oh, with my master's, I could become a teacher, a professor. So I actually was a professor at this for-profit for-profit school.
Was it a university that was started by an ex-president?
Nah, it was some BS university. It was like you see the advertisements on the train and all that. It was BS.
Were you getting paid?
Huh?
Were you getting paid? Good money?
Paid. I was getting paid $45 an hour.
45 an hour?
Yeah.
The hell
and
were
I
you
was
teaching? What were you teaching,
I was teaching
bro?
Microsoft Word, and one class was Microsoft Word, and then another class was a database class. The basics of database. Like it was just simple, you know? So, and what we was practicing on Microsoft Access, that was the database. It was so easy. But the students and the clientele they were getting, it was for profit. So they were getting a lot of, immigrants in the US that were there trying to get a visa and all that.
So they were trying to apply to be a student for a student visa to extend their stay in the US.
Exactly. Okay. So, and honestly,
these for-profit institutions were
they're
trash, bro.
Super trash, like long resources and everything like that. Yeah. And I guess I didn't have a passion for it. I was more so doing it as a side hustle, and I thought it would be easy and all that. And I just didn't have the patience for it. And most of the students, shout out to them, they were smart, but the language barrier was hard. So it was to a point where the president of the school, I was like, they're not gonna pass this test. Like it was just simple Microsoft Word stuff.
Told them?
I was like, they're not ready. They're not gonna pass. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the language barrier. They're not gonna pass. He was like, make sure everyone passes. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, make sure everyone passes. I'm like, okay. So I literally gave them the answer sheet. And I'm like, yo, just study the answers. Like, study the answers.
Mike,
let me give you the test.
Don't shout the school out, bro. We can't do this. Delete that.
I don't even think the school is.
It was on LinkedIn. Delete the representation.
The school doesn't even exist anymore.
Oh my God.
And that was my bad. I was
okay. So you gave
them
the answers.
So I gave a group of students. I gave them the answers and all that. They literally didn't understand what I was giving them, and then they asked another teacher that was in the library questions on the answer sheet, and so the other teacher snitched me out, and then I got fired.
That's not cool. Was that other teacher like a good professor? Were they like?
I didn't even know them. They just I just seen them around, but I didn't really interact. Because this is, mind you, I have my 9 to 5, which I'm focused on, and then this is just outcome 6 to 10. So I'm just in and out teaching, and I'm out.
When did you have time to prep for the class?
Oh, on the weekend I would lay out my course.
Okay,
and
you
all
were
that.
outlining your course. All right, so it was a nice little 45 an hour. So you were making $180 for every 4 hours. For every 4 hours. How many times were you teaching a week?
3 times.
What a steal.
Nice.
That was your drinking money.
Nice,
that was your weekend money, but that was your weekend money.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, you realized you were not a passionate professor.
Exactly. And then I learned, in New York, we tend to have that hustler's mentality, and we tend to get it by any means necessary. But I learned that is not a good attitude to have, because anything, if you're investing your time in, you want to make sure you believe in it and it's a passion, And then honestly, kind of stop doing things just solely for money.
Yeah.
It has to be a reason behind it. It has to be a purpose.
It has to be intentional and purposeful. Money, profits will always be secondary or third or the fourth on the priority list, because if you're doing it solely for the money, you're going to sell out. You're going to go ahead and do things that don't align with who you are as a person.
Compromise yourself.
You're going to compromise yourself and your platform and your quality of the content. Like, we don't absolutely want to do this. And I think that's the first thing you and I spoke about. What are we doing this for? Are we dedicated to this? Is this just to turn a profit? Or this is trying to get out a message and try to, get out the things that we believe in as people.
Yeah.
So that's
and at the same time, me as a professor, and keep in mind, I was 25, 26 at the time. So I was young, hustling and all that. Yeah. So, that's not me now. I don't want to take any shortcuts and all that. And I shortchanged probably the students that were there to learn something. So big lessons learned there,
And
tell me about it.
Oh man, the first time I got fired was actually a job that my dad got me. My dad has always gotten me like my first jobs because he's known so many people in the community. So my first job was working at the airport. I'm not gonna say what company I was, but I was in the tower, right? Communicating signals from this certain company down to the crew that was actually on the floor. And I had the shift between 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. Oh no.
How old were you?
I was like 19 when I first.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I was like the one with the best English.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I was the one with the best English, and I had the 6 to 2, and it wasn't Monday through Friday. It was the weekend, so it was Saturday, Sunday, Mondays, and like Thursdays or something. The worst schedule you could have as a 19-year-old or 18-year-old. And I was just kind of doing it for the money. I was like 19, 20 years old. I didn't have any money. I was still getting money from my mom at the time. I was like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to build myself a little bit of independence.
Yeah.
And I was just doing it for the money at the time. I didn't really care. Long story short, I went out on a Thursday night, got way too blitzed, and I didn't show up the next morning. Right?
Okay.
I didn't show up the next morning.
You call in or?
I called in, said I was sick, but the person fired me. Like legitimately fired me, like the head of the person, which is funny because that's a person that my dad used to work there at that place, and they came up together, and the person just stayed there, and he became the head or whatever it was. But that was probably one of the best lessons I ever met in my life because I wasn't dedicated to that job, right? How many times have you and I gone out the night before a recording, but we always say, yo, we got to record the next day, right? We're making it, we're responsible, we're prepared. Yeah, we may come up a little groggy, but no matter what, you're dedicated to it. I wasn't dedicated to that job. I wasn't dedicated to what that job, it was just a means to an end for me to pay my phone bill, for me to be able to pay my car insurance at the time, for me to pay the gas to the bar, for the drinks I can barely afford, right? So that's what it really was for. And everything that I've ever ventured into my life, I've always had a sustainable amount of success. It hasn't been much. I don't have many businesses or anything like that, but the businesses that I've had will always serve the purpose. When I was in law school, I kind of had like a little independent contracting business where I was a settlement agent, but that fed a means to an end. I had my job where I worked at a private equity firm. I went to school at night, and I did this contracting. That was kind of like this side hustle that was basically my vacation money and my drinking money and my taking people out to dates money. That's what that served. And when I entered into my legal career where no longer I needed a side hustle because I made more than enough money, then I didn't need that anymore. It served its purpose, right? This podcast for me, like it's serving a more fulfilling purpose, a more intentional purpose for me, right? This is sort of to challenge me in my creative end. And this is a very long-term vision. This is something that we can continue going for decades and years. And we don't know what this can transform into. This may start as a podcast. We have no idea how this can transform into, right? And honestly, what I learned is you got to stick to your guns, man. And that first moment of sort of challenge or an obstacle is really going to test whether or not you're dedicated to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And this is, even though we got stood up here and we're talking about it before this episode, there's been many reasons for us to be like, we're good on this.
Pack it in.
Let's pack it in. It was a good shot. No one's going to really, everyone's kind of going to be like, well, that was fun for 8 episodes or whatever. You can keep going. But nah, we're still here.